In 2020, the senior population of people over 65 in this country was about 56 million. By 2030, all the baby boomer generations will be 65 or older. The growth from the larger families of yesteryear to them being seniors now is incredible. By 2030, it's going to be an additional 16.6 million on top of the 56 million. By 2040, it's going to be up to 80 million seniors in this country. That's a complete shift of our dynamic of the population today, and those folks are going to need services.
Hello, everyone, and thanks again for tuning in to this week's edition of the Franchising 101 podcast. I am Tim Parmeter, founder and CEO of FranCoach and your podcast host. Today, as we talked about last month, we are going to spotlight one specific industry every month this year to try to give you an overview of what it's all about, the different opportunities, what are some of the advantages, things to look for, how it might be a good fit for you or not. Again, anybody ever tells you that there is one best franchise or one best or hottest industry out there, I promise you folks, they either don't know what they're talking about or they are lying to you, right? Or trying to sell you something. So don't buy it, but there are some amazing things out there. We want to help educate you on that. That's what we're going to do today. And joining us, we're going to talk about the senior care, senior services space. So joining us today is, I don't know, he's got some fancy title these days, Executive Vice President, Poobah, something, with Senior Helpers, our dear friend, and fourth or fifth time on the show, Mr. Rob Cantrell. Rob, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Tim. It's great to be here joining you on the podcast today. You don't have to have any titles. You can just call me Rob. Or my wife has other names for me too, but I'm sure we can keep those off here today.
Those are more accurate, but this is a family show, so we'll keep it
exactly. We'll keep it clean.
We will indeed. So thanks for joining us today, and you've been in the senior care space for a long time now. So we really want to talk about, and I know you are all about senior helpers and how amazing of a brand it is, and it certainly is. We're gonna try to I'll mute you or edit out every time you start pitching senior helpers.
I'll try to keep it to a minimum. I have a lot of good things to talk about, but industry wide, it's a great industry to be in. So I think I can help out for what we're looking for here.
Yeah, don't worry. We have editors and producers, so it's all good. So to start with, just let's go like really broad as an industry, and we've talked obviously with you and other people, the in-home care space of senior services, senior care, but there are some other things a little bit. So, and probably 3 or 4 different categories. So kind of lay out what are the different things out there that touch on kind of senior services?
Yeah. So, the in-home care option is really broken into 2 categories, and you've got essentially medical and non-medical. The non-medical folks are spending the majority of the time in the home with the client, providing a host of services, whether it's help with bathing and dressing, or helping with nutrition and med reminders. That's really what senior helpers and others like us do in the industry. The home health model is where they might be going in and out of the home. They might be there for oxygen treatment. They might be there for wound care. They might be doing some sort of procedural type work. And usually those folks are, different insurance, different model for what they do. But really, those are the 2 types of care, medical versus non-medical. And then obviously we all know there's facility care. If people can't live independently in their home, then they're going to go to a facility where they have round-the-clock care and services. And even the senior residencies out there, some of them are just over 65 residences with just a lot of seniors within that building, and some have nurses on staff and folks that can attend to them.
Gotcha. Right. And then I know there's a couple of, every now and then you'll see some things that will be a little more niche, right? Just like from a transport standpoint, which I know some in-home care providers will do also. And then there's some other things that just kind of kind of touch on it. I know there's even some things that'll focus on, like almost like home improvement type of things, but specific to the senior model. But really the bulk of this is going to be that in-home care, right? So and why it's so big, right? Talk a little bit about kind of the industry as a whole, some of those like those stats, like, is it a big industry? Is it growing? Is there really opportunity here? Talk about some of those things industry wide from a senior standpoint.
Yeah, from just a sheer numbers standpoint, Tim, I mean, in 2020, the senior population of people over 65 in this country was about 56 million. Then by 2030, all the baby boomer generations will be 65 or older. The growth from the larger families of yesteryear to them being seniors now is incredible. By 2030, it's going to be an additional 16.6 million on top of the 56 million. By 2040, it's going to be up to 80 million seniors in this country. That's a complete shift of our dynamic of the population today, and those folks are going to need services. I mean, with medical advancement and people living longer, to people just having more needs in home. And if COVID taught us anything about this particular industry, is not a lot of seniors want to live out that life in a facility that's going to get locked down and keep them from being able to see their families for years. So whether it's telehealth or whether it's bringing in someone to care in that home, that's where 9 out of 10 seniors, and I don't know where the other one that would disagree, is they want to be in the home where they're most comfortable.
Right. Well, and then you throw in the fact of, right, like families aren't having as many children, right? We're spread out more and more,
Yep.
right?
And
And
average distance 280 miles from family to senior, in this country, and that's growing.
yeah, well, like I'm 2000, right?
Right.
And so and I am having conversations with one of your owners right now about my mom and her husband and their stubbornness of needing the care. I'm
Yep.
2,000 miles away. They're sure as hell not moving in with me, right? There's
Nor
a
can you
law.
run, nor can
There's
you
a
jump in the
law.
car to get over to them.
No, there's a law. No one else is allowed to move into Arizona. So there's just it's a thing. So it
Yep.
sucks my sister's right there, but that's what she gets. But it's hard. Like you want to make sure like your family members, parents, grandparents, whatever. But not to be selfish, we're busy. We got stuff, we got lives. We don't nest around like, I mean, there are still people that do it, but there's not the compound of like 4 generations of a family all living on the same, plot of 40 acres, right? So that really kind of not just the amount of seniors, but the distance we are apart from each other is really tough.
Yeah, the economic times we're in with inflation, not many single income households anymore. I mean, it's usually a double income situation. And that's where mom or dad doesn't get what mom or dad used to maybe 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
So that's changed the dynamic too. People have to make a living. They've got to keep up with the costs, but they also want what's best for mom and dad too. So that's where the demand really comes in for having a professional company that can come in and help supplement that and provide the best care and the appropriate care. A lot of times, well-intended family try to jump in and help, but they might not have the skills, training, or understanding, especially if the senior is dealing with a chronic condition or illness. They don't have experience in that. So part of what we do at our company is we try to help train and educate the family as well as the services that we provide. But there's a gap there as well.
Yeah, I think it's we think of this sometimes from our kids' standpoint of, like, well, hey, I might not be the best person to help my 10-year-old with math homework, right?
Right.
Because there's going to naturally be some friction, or, hey, back in my day when I walked uphill in the snow both ways to school, this is how we did math, right? And so the same thing with that. Now all of a sudden trying to take care of our elderly parents, there's naturally going to be those, like, it's family. There's going to be that friction, and just not being educated enough on how to do it properly. So I love that point also.
And there's dignity and independence for the senior as well. I mean, Do you want to have to help your mom with some personal care needs that that you've never had to before? And,
Right.
that's an awkward situation for a family to be in too. Of course, we do anything we need to help, but, let the pros do the work there.
Yeah. So obviously there's other things within the senior care space outside of the in-home services, but the in-home is by far the most dominant piece of it, right? So I want to kind of focus on a couple things within that business model for this. So start with the owner, right? Because again, people listening to this are probably not going to be the caregivers; they're going to be the owners, right? So like I think there's the common myth in franchising that you need to have tons of industry experience and background. You may end up, in this case, you may be the one in there taking care of grandma. So talk right about kind of that industry standpoint. Does that
Yeah.
matter? How much are they in the home actually doing the work?
Yeah, that's a common misconception when people are first introduced to, what senior care is and what we do. And as a potential owner, they're thinking, wow, I don't want to do that work. And well, that's not the work you're doing. We really focus on the individual, what their business acumen is, their leadership, what are these traits and toolbox that they have maybe from prior careers and experience dealing with people, managing people, communicating with people, being able to look at the business side as well as the personal side. I will say that most owners that get into this have to have some kind of compassion for the cause of what we're doing, the seniors that are out there. I mean, I've heard it described as a mission-driven for-profit business. Well, yeah, we're enriching and we're helping others, in time of need. So that's a business you can really feel good about. The actual, doing the service, that's where the caregiver comes in. So you don't have to have any prior medical experience or clinical experience to get into, nor will you be required to go in and actually do the care services yourself as a typical owner of a home care agency. Now, I have known owners to take a shift here or there, and that's completely up to them whether they want to, fill in where they needed to. But as a whole, that's not the model. The model is really to build the support around the leader and have the leader lead. And that's what we look for in a successful franchise owner.
Yeah. And I think that the point about are there some owners, regardless of the franchise, that do take a shift here or there? There's always, I don't care what franchise or what industry.
Yeah.
Is there a McDonald's owner that likes to make French fries a little bit more than they should, right? There is, or a landscape franchise owner that's out there on the lawnmower. Like the franchise doesn't really want that, but again, you are the owner. You kind of like if
Sure.
you like that or you want to jump in, you can, but like it's rarely. I don't care what industry, it's rarely what the franchise is looking for.
Yeah.
So I know there's a range with this, so this is a little bit of a loaded question, but
Yeah.
what's maybe a typical day in a life for an owner? What does that look like?
So it's very much a people business. You've got two sides. You've got your clientele and family, and then you've got your workforce. So you've got folks that you have to manage, hire, recruit, train, and retain. And then you've got clients that you got to educate about what services we provide, do an overview assessment to figure out exactly what the care plan we're going to bring into the home looks like. So an owner, and there's really two directions an owner can take this model. They can be more of an operations-centric owner, where they're maybe not client-facing or community-facing. They might be behind the scenes, interviewing, hiring, recruiting, using all the training tools and resources and managing that workforce. Some owners are, they might come from a marketing or sales background and experience. They might want to get out there and promote the business. A lot of referrals come from clinical spaces. So we've got to get out there and build relationships. So they're thinking of whatever company home care you're working for, that's the company that they want to recommend. So you've really got to be able to get out there and promote and market. Some owners are very adaptive and comfortable in that situation. Others don't want to be that. So in this model, you've got really a tandem startup of an external, internal need for running the business. The owner can take one or the other and hire a counterpart, or in our case, they can be kind of a utility player and play in a little bit of each of the ponds and hire more of a mini-me version that's kind of offsetting the workload. For our model, we run out of a storefront. We do have office space with signage and visibility. So, the brand, draws in a lot of that type of business as well. And we use a lot of our space for training, because caregiver training and specialization and really making sure that they know what they're doing going into the home is really important, because you really want to be able to give the client-centered approach to care, and you need to be able to be adaptive to whatever those needs are. And there are a variety of things that go on with seniors that really cause them to need the type of care we provide. It's not just normal aging, it's a number of other things that factor in.
Yeah. So, and I think when people think of that owner role, and for, I think, and not just certainly you guys, but just in general, this is a two-sided. There's the forward facing and the op side, right? And so as somebody is looking at this industry in particular, right? Like if you're talking to another franchise owner and they are super forward facing, and you're like, I don't like people. I'm not that person. I'm more ops.
Yeah.
You can always do that and hire somebody else, right? It's
Exactly.
and totally stealing this from our dear friend Dan Durney at Assisting Hands, that he always says, like do what you do best and hire for the rest.
Yep.
And there's no way in the world Dan created that. So he stole it from somebody else. I just don't know where. So we'll
We
totally
all
call him
steal
out
these
on that.
lines. We all steal these lines when we hear a good one.
Yes. But it really is, like, when I think it kind of helps put people at ease a little bit of, oh, what am I best at? Does it align here, right? And you talked about, like, one of the common characteristics or traits of an owner in this industry is, and you said it more eloquently than I'm going to, you have to give a damn about people.
Yeah.
Right. And so you do have to have that. But I think, and I want to kind of roll this into staff, but you have to give a damn about people, but you also have to be comfortable being around people. Are you the front facing person out in the community, talking to people, talking to families? Or are you in the office managing what's going to be a very big kind of staff of caregivers? So that people quality, right? Just in general is, again, way more than background industry wise, is hugely important for this industry. Correct?
Yeah, I would certainly say, if you don't like people, don't look at this industry. Because whether you're providing employment for people and job creation, you've got to create a culture that you're going to retain those people that you hire. So you've got to have a likability factor, that you're going to be there for them and train them and care for them and build your culture. On the client facing side, I mean, you've got to be able to sincerely get across to that family or that client that you're going to provide the ultimate care that they would for their own loved ones. So you've got to have compassion and empathy from that perspective. It is truly a people business, and on both sides.
Hey everyone, I want to take a moment to spotlight an exciting offer from our partners at Reshift Media. Reshift Media's Brand Amplifier is an award-winning digital marketing platform designed to fit the specific needs of franchise organizations. The dashboard allows national and local teams to quickly and easily manage social content and digital advertising across dozens, hundreds, even thousands of locations. The Brand Amplifier will use automation and machine learning to help franchise systems save time and dramatically improve their digital marketing performance. When a campaign is activated, the Brand Amplifier automatically geo-targets advertising to potential customers around each store and will insert local information such as city, neighborhood, or pricing, which will increase both relevance and performance. Launching a campaign takes less than 5 minutes. It's just that easy. And franchise companies that use the Brand Amplifier routinely see a 500% or more increase in digital performance. That's amazing, folks. Over 500% increase. And best of all, the Brand Amplifier team is currently offering a 50% off for a limited time. So be sure to visit brandamplifier.io to lock in that deal today and tell them FranCoach sent you. Hey everyone, I wanted to take a quick break from our podcast to tell you about our amazing friends at Entrepreneur. If you're looking to become a franchisee or simply learn more about business ownership, and guys, let's be honest, you're listening to the Franchising 101 podcast, so we know you have some interest in this. And I really encourage you to go to entrepreneur.com to check out all of their great content and resources. Seriously, Entrepreneur has everything, all the way from a bookstore to the best podcasts, webinars, and videos, plus information on upcoming events and the latest articles that seriously, they cover all aspects of franchising and business ownership. If you're having trouble deciding which franchise is right for you, start with Entrepreneur's renowned Franchise 500 ranking, which highlights the best franchises of 2022. For 45 years and counting now, Entrepreneur has been and continues to be the most widely recognized and respected authority in the franchise market. Digital and print subscriptions are available, so you never miss out on anything. So seriously, what are you waiting for? Go to entrepreneur.com right now and learn more. We had asked this a lot, or it comes up a lot, and you may hear it too, but we probably get it earlier and then before we ever get our clients to franchises. It's like, oh my gosh, what's the best franchise? What's the top franchise? What's the hottest franchise or industry? There really isn't one, people. And this is a great reason why. And I use this industry as an example with people, right? Like we've had with our team, whether it's senior helpers or other brands, oh my gosh, probably close to 30 of our clients are now owners in that industry. And I can sit here and I can look at it and go, it's, no pun intended, it's booming, right? All the amazing things that are going on, right? So somebody's like, well, geez, Tim, you've seen all of these successes. Why don't you own one? I don't like people, right? Like I don't like people.
Live out in the desert, Tim.
I don't like people. They don't like me. Old people make me sad because I'm getting old. I don't want a big staff. Like there is nothing about this business model that is for me, right? So that doesn't mean it's bad or I shouldn't own a franchise, though I probably shouldn't, right? But it's all about that fit, right? And so I think one of the biggest, and correct me if I'm wrong, as you hear like kind of quote concerns or like worries about this industry is the staff component of this. Is maybe the only industry, the in-home care, where you will have more people on the payroll than you will have clients, right? Yep. So talk about we mentioned, one person is out, one person is in. So you've got kind of that like, kind of two full-time people, owner plus one. But then we have the caregivers. So talk to us a little bit about what that kind of staff looks like and just, how in the heck do we find these people that want to do this work?
Yeah, and that's where I think certainly going with a franchise system is going to be completely beneficial because they've got recruiting programs and systems in place that are going to help with that. And we've got partners that work specifically looking for people in this industry. Our company's been Great Place to Work certified for a number of years, and we really have built out a arsenal of programs to really dedicate and build up that workforce. You're typically dealing with someone who lower socioeconomics. They're not getting rich off of being a caregiver. They've got that special caregiver gene. I mean, we hire a lot of CNAs. They say it's not the CNA, it's what's the DNA of the CNA that you're looking for. So you can't just put warm bodies out there because you're never going to get delivery of the level of care that you expect. So I think you've got to have a strong knockout process when you're doing your recruiting. What are the right traits we're looking for? What are questions in the interview process we're going to ask? Aside from background screens and the basics, but really getting to know that candidate and then taking care of that caregiver as almost like a client of yours as the owner, because you've got to cultivate and build that workforce. And yeah, the demands of recruiting out there in any industry, everyone's going to say, wow, I got to hire a ton of people. There are people out there, if you do it right, that you will continue to grow and hire. There's I know through COVID, a lot of folks were sitting on their couch collecting checks, and that affected the workforce a little bit. But now, people need to make a living, and there are special people out there that are really suited for being caregivers. It doesn't just have to be, the 33-year-old that you hire. It can be someone who's semi-retired. You've got clinical folks going through nursing school that make excellent caregivers. You've got, stay-at-home parent that kids are in school. They can, maybe pick up some shift time while that school day is going on. So you've got to think outside of the box, but you've got to have a pretty tight system for what you're looking for too.
Yeah.
I think quality of individual, and because you make the mistake of hiring the wrong person, they don't work out. Fortunately, we have a lot of checks and balances, inspect what we expect of that workforce. So we really try to minimize, having those mistakes made on the front end that otherwise, if we hadn't paid attention, we could have, missed on.
Right. Well, and it's one of the, I don't know, roughly 1 million reasons why the franchise model is significantly more successful than starting it up, right? It's like if I'm going to start a senior care business on my own, I am very limited to what I know and what I can do because that's all the more I can train. And even then it's not
Oh,
it's not a well thought out training program, right? Or
yeah,
how to hire. You mentioned even what questions do you ask a caregiver in an interview, right? Well, the franchise model, right?
yeah.
Maybe there is a franchise out there somewhere that's going to tell you good luck, but we know there's not, right? They're going to have those level of support of even this is where you find them, this is what you ask, this is how, and again, how you train them. You mentioned the importance of having an office, and that franchise model in this space. Yes, somebody may walk in, but really the people who are going to walk in are going to be your caregivers, right? From interviewing, training them. Like you don't want to be doing that at your kitchen table, right?
That no, and that's one of the things sometimes you'll get pushback on is why do I need an office? Well, there's so many reasons you need to have a professional presence. Yeah, for the caregivers, you're going to hire a lot of them, and with the franchise, training and operational support are really key to the level of service, being at a high level. So that office plays into that. For senior helpers, we have a training center set up in every office so we can do hands-on skill training. But that's really important. If you just start out of your kitchen and you've got caregivers lined up out the front door, do you really want that? Or where you're going to be recruiting and people showing up and a lot of dynamic going on there. We also meet a lot with family members too, because when I talked earlier about training families, sometimes they might be embarrassed to let mom know, I really don't know how to use that gate belt or Hoyer lift. Well, we'll take you into senior helpers and help you with that as well. And we meet a lot of folks around the community. So, the signage and visibility plays into it. And proximity, usually we put our offices around those medical areas that people are driving past anyhow. And have a lot, 350 plus locations, you really start to get a lot of what works, what doesn't work. So, having the right location is certainly critical.
Yeah. And I think the labor piece for probably this industry tends to freak people out. And I think either you're going to wrap your head around the fact you're going to have a big staff and really being able to it's easy to see having an impact in the families, right, of your clients, but you're going to have an impact with your staff too, right? You may have somebody that, was working at Starbucks and they're tired of working making a latte. I want to make a difference. Well, this gives them that opportunity, right? And so, but it goes back to the people thing, and it's my labor soapbox, right? Oh, labor issues. There's leadership issues, right? And if you're not a people person and want the opportunity, you see this as not challenging, but a challenge to build this type of culture and team. And I always say, if you're in year 2 of a business, I don't care what business it is, if your best source of employees doesn't come from your existing ones referring, take a look in the mirror, right? If you've got tons of turnover, take a look in the mirror. I guarantee you it is not the labor force, it is not them.
Yeah.
It is you. So again, really drives home that point you made about this is a people business, right? From that internally and externally. So tell us a little bit about this. I think, and this happens a lot in industries, and probably you and I both can get on a soapbox about this, but oh my gosh, Rob, there's so much competition out there, right? So, in fact, you gave me the authentic response to that, because I always tell clients, I'm like, well, we'll talk about that. I'm like, ask them the question. I don't care what franchise. I promise you, they won't do it out loud, but they are laughing in their head or rolling their eyes at you, because it seems like there's a lot of competition, but is there really?
Yeah, there's, that's always I do it every time because you do get that come up quite often. If you just want to look at sheer, competition and you look on Google home care companies, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, there's no way. Well, the way our industry works is it takes a relatively low client count to start building up a substantial revenue. Typically less than 30 clients, and you're tracking well over 1 million in revenue. And there's a lot of seniors out there, as we've already established, with this population growth thing going on. So it doesn't take as many clients as you may think to build a successful model. And there's room for everybody. I've got some, I call them my frenemies. I've got friends in the industry of other brands that do a good job and great work as well. But it really is so spread out as far as a very fractional competitive landscape. It's unlike almost any other industry you're going to really be looking at, with looking at the supply of seniors that you're dealing with, looking at what the options are out there. Providing in-home care is the more affordable solution for many families. So the unit economics set up, for that as well. But competition is really looking yourself in the mirror, and do you have the leadership and the right company behind you that has systems in place to go get what's yours and what's out there and to grow your business. And there's plenty of room. There's a long runway. Most brands have some sort of territory size and number of seniors, and you'll never hit more than a 1% market share ever in this industry. If you did, in a single territory, you're usually uber successful. I don't know how large other territories are, but
Yeah.
that and that's one of the things you educate potential owners on when they're learning about the business. You'll get that question
Yep.
comes up.
It's crazy. And I think this maybe more than any other industry, like how small of a piece of the pie. I mean, it is literally a fraction of 1%. And I think across the board with all the different home care
Yeah,
service franchises that we work with, a territory at a bare minimum is going to have 20,000 seniors in it, right? And usually more. And,
yeah,
like if I go really high and say, oh my gosh, you're going to need 50 clients to get to $1 million in revenue, you're like, 50 out of 20,000, like you got
yeah,
to really kind of stop and go, come on now. Like you can fall out of bed and get some, right? And
yeah,
even then, even if it was 1%, right, that you needed to get to build to reach your goals financially, there could be 99 other businesses all getting 1%. And we know a good part of any industry is fragmented mom and pop, where it's like,
yeah,
Tim's Home Care. Well, I got 5 clients because it's me and somebody else out there doing it.
yeah,
Where like franchises, I think in general, look at the non-franchises almost like from an arrogant standpoint of like whatever, like that's not even competition from any level of looking at a business. And the other franchises that are doing this, like they are all smart enough to know like we need just a teeny tiny little piece of the
yeah,
pie, right? So it's understandable to ask the question and look at it and want to understand the demographics, but just across the board, especially in this industry, it's just
yeah. I
your
mean,
your reaction was perfect because you laughed, right? And that's kind of, you don't want to make light of it, but it's just not a thing.
yeah, it's not, and it's not uncommon to have owners from different brands in the same market have lunch together quarterly, or they know one another.
Yep.
So it's a frenemy thing. It's not a true enemy, And there is a diversity of providers out there aside from franchises. You've got larger national chains and regional agencies and independent caregivers that are just kind of 1099, and that's where the industry can get scary because they're really unregulated and they're not really screened properly, and you really have to vet the individual for that. So those are all in the mix as well as franchises that are out there.
Yeah. And I think it's a good point because when you think most cases in franchising, like if you're an owner and you're going to get caught up in, oh, I lost this client because they went with, their neighbor down the street because it was cheaper. Like, okay, like we're not racing. Like that's the whole point of this is the quality. Well, your neighbor down the street might know how to do one or two things, but what about when things start to get worse? What all of a sudden, like Alzheimer's starts to kind of take
Yeah.
over or what, like it's not that the horror stories are rarely the franchise. Well, it's Sally down the street, or I swear to God, my mom and her husband are going to use somebody they know from the Moose Lodge. Like, good
Yeah,
Lord, right? Like,
and that's where it's
how's that going to work? Like, this is where you and I will be having a conversation about that, like separately at some point, and it's okay, but it's kind of like, as my 10-year-old would say, when it doesn't go well, that's what you get, right?
yeah,
Like, and it's really, you got to have that kind of quality component of like all of the things that are doing to vet, to hire, to train, to support, to manage those caregivers, and even the communication back and forth. I know the senior helpers, you guys have a great tech platform and assessments that are done, and that's like fairly common, or some sort of that in the franchise world, to just really differentiate yourself from, the lady from the Moose Lodge, right? So
yeah.
huge differences with that.
Yeah, because care is individual. I mean, you've got to take a true client-centered approach, is looking at that individual, their environment, their needs, their health situation. Everyone's different that you're dealing with out there. So you better have a pretty broad playbook in your arsenal of capability that you're going to be drawing from. And that's where I think the franchise systems, at least the good ones out there, have multiple categories of training programs that,
Right.
focus on various chronic conditions. I mean, you got Alzheimer's, dementia, you've got Parkinson's, you've got COPD, you got people with diabetes, you have stroke victims, heart issues. You have such a diversity of clients with differing needs. You've got to really have an organization behind you that you can draw all of that resource from, and that comes in training and providing the best quality care for the individual. That's what clients want. They don't want a cookie cutter approach.
Right.
They want personalization. And
Yep.
that I think the companies that are doing it right out there get that and focus on that. I mean,
Yep.
that's how we do our evaluations. We have a life profile tool that we look at 5 different categories of a sheet of different things, and we actually have a algorithm built into a software that scores and ranks how safe that senior is in their current situation, and how we're going to draw and mitigate that into a more positive outcome with the services that we provide.
Yeah. Everyone's favorite topic is themselves, right? And so if you can personalize this for those clients versus that cookie cutter thing, right? So, okay. So last thing, I know you're busy, so hopefully this is kind of helping people get an overview of the industry in general, right? Certainly a little more focused on the in-home care. It's the biggest section, and yes, there's some super cool things that are facilities, including you guys have a sister brand, Town Square. That's awesome. Those are investments that usually have 2 commas in them, right? Eliminates most of us. The in-home usually kind of sub 200,000 all in, getting you up and running, significantly more attainable for people. So you can hear all of the things, the positives, the growth. If you're a people person, right? If you actually care about individuals and want to make a difference in the community, this could be fantastic. But minds go to the negative. Yeah. What's the catch? Rob, in this industry, what would make somebody fail as an owner?
Wow, that's a question we could probably spend three podcasts on if we really dove in. But I think to simplify it, I would say if you're going with a franchise and they have an item 7 and it's got a low range and a high range, you better plan for being in that range on either end when you're starting a business. Undercapitalization. If you're buying into a franchise, you're usually buying into a system and a program and a proven model. Follow the model. I've seen franchisees come in, and a lot of great ideas come from the franchisees, don't get me wrong. But those that are always trying to either save a buck or cut a corner and come up with, a new way. There's a reason that franchises build to the size that we have and others have. It's because you're doing a lot of things right, and you've got a program in place and a playbook that's pretty well laid out. So stay on the playbook. It's not to say you're not the boss and owner and captain of that ship, and that leader that you are, you can be all of that. You're in business for yourself, not by yourself. You need to really, I think, rely on the franchise that you commit to, that they really have the expertise that they're going to support you and that their model works. If you
Right.
don't have that confidence, don't buy that franchise.
Right.
So have the funds to invest for what they recommend, follow the program that they're going to lay out. If you stick to those, you've got a very high, success rate. Some, it's like a race car. Any driver can drive a race car. Some can drive the wheels off of it and win any race. Others might be slower or faster just on how they use the tool that they're given. But if you consistently stay in this industry and you build, it's a recurring revenue model. So you have to do all the things, that make up the model, but you're going to build a business that's sustainable and grows. Our curve for year over year growth is always an upward trend. And, that's just through consistency and demand and building onto your business year over year.
Follow the plan, right?
Yeah.
It's really franchise owner. It is really that. So put forth the effort, which is also part of the plan.
That's too.
Don't be cheap, right? Like don't cheap out on marketing. Don't cheap out on staff. And just follow the damn plan, people. The trick is, again, we talked about this, like kind of like half joke about me. I would be a terrible owner in this industry, right? And that doesn't mean it's a bad industry or a bad franchise in that industry. It's not the right match. When you find the match, just do what the heck is laid out in that plan. It's really that simple.
Yeah, and there needs to be a mind shift when you're getting into business for the first time. If you've been a corporate refugee for 20 years and you've been working for a company and getting that paycheck, you're not buying a job when you get a franchise. You need to draw on all those skills that maybe you've learned in your professional career, but you have to really take it upon yourself to be the leader of that franchise at your location, and you need to treat it accordingly. You're going to get all the resources and support and training around you, but you've got to be the one driving that playbook. And that's where sometimes that you see some folks get into, well, if I buy a franchise, it's success in a box. Well, yeah, it's got all the components to be successful, but you've still got to implement. Now, fortunately, in our franchise, we layer support around every aspect of the business that you can rely on, but we rely on you to run the business and get out there and get after it. The top performing owners are not waiting, for a lead to come in from a marketing drip campaign. They're going out and getting after it. They're getting in their community. They're getting well known. They're building a culture amongst their workforce that people want to work for, and they're successful. A lot of it comes with your attitude as an owner and how you want your business to go, because that follows really what your attitude is, how you really perceive the business.
Yeah, no, the X factor is you as the franchise owner. But I don't care what franchise and what industry. Why will somebody fail? It's going to be like you didn't put forth the effort. You didn't follow the plan. And you said something, and I can't remember who said this on one of our podcasts at some point. One of the franchise partners was how they talked about positivity, right?
Yeah.
And because it's like something goes wrong, like, oh, it's the franchise, or oh, I shouldn't. Like, what is your outlook on this, right? Like, guess what?
Yeah.
Somebody doesn't want to be your client. Somebody's going to start being your client and they're not. Caregiver is going to quit, right? Or not, or bad stuff is going to happen, but you wanted the control of running the dang business. What's your outlook and your attitude on that? It makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, you need to be more of a solution mindset than, a problem mindset. And
right.
If you're always looking for a solution, any problem can be overcome. It's just in how you look at it. Two other things on franchisees and just, years of being in the industry. If you're getting into this, if you have a spouse or significant other, I would highly recommend that you consult or educate your spouse along the way of your due diligence with the franchise. How many times, Tim, have we had, folks that we talk to that they don't share what's going on with their spouse, and at the time when they're all excited and ready to sign, the spouse is not on board? One of the reasons franchises in general fail is divorce. So make sure that both whomever are on board with the idea and will be able to provide. Not that they're going to be involved in the business. Some spouses work together great. I wouldn't work with my spouse. She's a nurse. I wouldn't be able to do her job for sure. But making sure, at least from a supportive standpoint, that they're on board with what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's, and other factors, franchising, people have life events and crisis and things that happen that just are out of our control. Those are things we can't control. Everything else, I think we can control and get in front of, especially when you're making a major decision to get off that corporate refugee couch and get out there and, get a business and something you own, and really the sky's the limit that you can build, and, all your dreams of whatever you're looking for can be fulfilled if you do it right.
Yep. No, and great point on the spouse, significant other, whatever. Like it's so different than the corporate world, right? You're not going to show up at a job interview and go, "Hey, do you mind if my wife sits in?"
My wife's going to sit in and see. Yeah, it's a little
better than bringing your mom, but it's not going to go well, right? But with this process, whether it's us or franchises, like I've never ran across a franchise that wasn't completely welcome of that person being involved in every part of, even if they're never going to be involved in the business, it's still a family business. So the more the merrier, bring them along, because it's really, there's so much information that you're going to get from even one call with a franchise. And now it's like, well, geez, Rob told me all this great stuff about senior helpers. Now I got to go tell Danielle, and there's no way I'm going to relay it the same way.
Yeah.
She's going to ask me a question. I'm going to go,
so,
no, well, that's going to seem shady. It's just get that. Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up, man. Just get them involved with all of us sooner than later. So.
Yeah. How many times have we been on calls, and I usually do them by Zoom or webinar, and I'll have my presentation deck, and they're like, "Can you send me that deck?" And I'm like thinking, okay, it's not just for your notes. I don't want that individual trying to rehash everything that I've talked about. So get your spouse to join on the call, or at least know who you're talking to or who you're dealing with. Because, we consider the senior helpers family just that. Our relationship with our franchisees, we care as much about their success as they do their success. And, we put a lot of resources, and our people care. So we want to know, that your home life is settled with the fact that you're on the team with senior helpers.
Yeah, this isn't your mistress. Share it with your partner.
I didn't say that, Tim, but that's funny. That's hilarious.
Rob, as always, my friend, thanks for coming on and talking to us today just about all the amazing things within the senior service space. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'm going to be heading out your way for IFA coming up, and hope I can catch up with you out there, Tim.
Awesome. I look forward to it. And thanks everybody, as always, all of our loyal listeners for joining in today. If you hear something about this industry that resonates with you, please reach out. FranCoach.net, franchising101podcast.net. Again, basketball guy here. We're nothing but net. Reach out to us. There's never any fee for our call. Let's chat and see if we can help you create your better tomorrow. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll talk with you next week.